Imagine getting a work permit in just 3 to 4 months, having a green card in less than a year, all without any extraordinary achievements or an employer. What's the catch, Yash? Well, the catch is that you need to have 800,000 US dollars in your bank account. But if you have the money and you don't mind putting it down as an investment in the US, well, you could have the EB-5 visa, subsequently a green card essentially, in your hands. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the end-to-end process of the EB-5 green card, whatever we have experienced with our attorney, so that you can go ahead and simplify the process for yourself. Remember, if you ever need help with your case, our WhatsApp number is in the description, or you can go ahead, sign up on YMGrad.com, and from there, you're going to be able to connect with a lot of other people who are interested in going through this process. We will also give you some free guides using which it would be easier for you to navigate the process. The EB-5 has multiple classifications. The first and the traditional one is the unreserved EB-5 category. Now, if you look at the visa bulletin, there's a bit of a backlog for certain countries. For instance, if you're an Indian, well, unreserved visa category will have a backlog. That means too many people are applying and you're going to be standing at the end of a line. And before your EB-5 green card is given to you, the other people who have applied before you have to be processed. So consider that there will be a waiting time of a couple of years. Now, what is the unreserved category? Well, that means that there's no special set aside number of visas for this category, and any sort of a project that you want to invest in qualifies. There's a 7,000 visa quota per annum and there's no reserved share. Now, why do people want to go for this class? Why is there a line? Because, well, it is easier for you to decide the project yourself simply because there's no restrictions on the project selection. You invest anywhere you want, wherever you feel like you have the security essentially of getting your money back. That's the one to go with. What is the minimum investment? Well, it's a $1,050,000 investment if you're going through the standard pathway. But if you have your investment in a targeted employment area, then it starts from 800,000. So India, China, Vietnam, countries like that, as you see on your screen, they have backlogs in this classification. What's popular? What kind of investments? Well, hotels, commercial buildings, real estate projects, all of these are popular avenues for investment under this one. What's the downfall? What's the risk? Well, there's a wait time. We don't know when exactly the wait time will go. Expect if you're from India, of course, even though it shows April 2022 dates and right now we are around April 2025, but still 3 years of backlog, it might take 4, 5, 6 years to clear. Well, the next one comes up to be the EB-5 reserved categories. There was an EB-5 reform in 2022 under the Integrity Act, and 32% of the EB-5 visas, almost 3,360, are reserved. That means that you get priority processing, there's no backlog essentially. Now, without going too deep into it, there's 3 further subclassifications. Rural area projects, which has 20% visa share along with $800,000 of standard investment. High unemployment areas, which have 10% again with the same $800,000 of minimum investment, and infrastructure projects. These ones only have a 2% visa share along with again $800,000 of a minimum investment. All of these categories have their own sub-requirements and rules, so I recommend that you read into it, find out the best investment for yourself based on whether you're going with unreserved or reserved, given the timelines that you have access to and what is your country of birth, because some countries have a bit of a backlog as I show you. Now let's talk about the EB-5 visa roadmap. So here's how your journey looks like. Well, the first thing you want to invest your time in is to find out the perfect project for your EB-5 journey. Trust me, this is already half the battle won because the USCIS requires you to put this money at risk. And $1 million is not a small amount. If you're putting this money at risk, you probably want to invest into a project that you know will give you the return. You want to look at the history, how many people have previously invested and gotten their money back. All of those things have to be considered, and there's a lot more metrics, so it's going to take its sweet time. I would recommend spending somewhere around 1 to 4 weeks at least doing this research, depending on how intensively you're researching. Now, when I tell you the reasons for denial later on in this video, you will understand how you should be picking your projects. But my recommendation right now is to choose a regional center which has a strong job cushion and a proper exit strategy. The second step is to transfer investment funds. This, of course, requires you to transfer 800,000 or $1 million depending on where you're investing. And your funds can go on to an escrow, which basically holds the funds depending on your initial petition approval, or they can be transferred directly to the project. Now that you've transferred the funds, step number 3 is to prove the lawful attainment of the funds. So what is the origin of your money? Are they from a sale of a property? Are they from salary that you've saved up? Are they your savings? Is it a gift or a loan? These details must be shared. Usually this process takes about 2 to 4 weeks, and the fee will depend on the attorney you're using. If you're using our attorney, you can get in touch with us and we'll be able to let you know about the relevant fee for this step. The fourth step is to file the I-526E petition. This is actually the first thing you file with the USCIS when you initiate the process for your EB-5. This also marks the day one of our timeline with the government when we petition for the EB-5. Expect to pay a total of $11,160 for the USCIS government fee and somewhere around $18,000 for the legal fee. Now, optionally, only if you are in the US, you can file the I-485, I-765, and the I-131 forms concurrently. These forms should be filed if you want work and travel authorization while you're staying in the US. So you basically already get these privileges even when your application is pending. The fee for these steps are, well, $1,440 for the I-485, $520 for I-765, and $630 for the I-131. On the other hand, if you're outside of the US, you just wait for the I-526E approval. This usually takes between 18 to 36 months. And when you get the approval, you're going to go on to the consular for the processing. Now, if you were in the US and you filed your I-485, in just 3 to 6 months, you're going to get your travel and work authorization. So you get the EAD, which, like I said, will take 3 to 6 months. Like I said, expect to receive your I-526 approval in about 18 to 36 months next, which means now we can proceed to the visa interview or the green card approval. Now, if you file from within the US, you can just apply for an adjustment of status and you can get your green card literally coming to you in the mail. However, if you file from overseas, then you need to go to a consular interview. This usually takes between 4 to 8 months, and the dates are also, not so easily available sometimes, so expect a little bit of a wait time. And over here, your overall spend is about $400 for the visa fee and $220 for the USCIS fee. At this point, you receive an immigrant visa stamp using which you enter the US, and then your green card comes to you by mail. At this point, please receive that the green card you have received is conditional. There are contingencies attached to it. After 2 years, USCIS will check if you've actually met the EB-5 criteria, if you've actually created jobs in the US, which is one of the rules of the EB-5 visa, and you don't need to directly do it through your own organization. Maybe the company that you invested in, the project that you invested in should be creating 10 jobs. But at that point, 2 years later, they're going to check if this requirement is being fulfilled. And this is where you file your I-829 form after 2 years to remove conditions from your green card. That usually happens around the month 21 to 24 from the time we began petitioning. This process costs you about $9,525 as of today. And then finally, about 5 to 7 years later, somewhere around that point, you want to try to pull your investment back. This, of course, is based on the exit strategy of the project that you invested into and not the government. Remember, if your funds are not coming back, your project failed, something like that happened, the government is not responsible for the money lost. That's a risk that you have to take. And finally, after 5 years on the green card, you can also apply for the citizenship. This will cost you somewhere around $760 through the N400 form. This is optional, and you should be meeting the physical presence rules on the green card, but again, that's not something that we're going to get into over here. Let's talk about some risks involved in this process. And this will be bifurcated by the categories, of course. If you're going with the unreserved category, which of course has the most flexibility but also has a massive backlog, then this can cause issues with travel sometimes. There's a high backlog, there's a little bit of an immigration risk over here. Financial risk is also moderate to high because these projects are unregulated. In fact, many times there's no clear exit timelines either. Rural Reserve project, however, if you went with, the immigration risk is low, financial risk is also low because these projects are usually government-backed and in many cases the processing is much faster. Then the high unemployment classification. Immigration risk is low, but the financial risk is somewhere moderate. Risk really depends on the developer's credibility and the demand within the location. Let's talk about the infrastructure projects. These are usually safer on all fronts. Immigration risk is low and financial risk is also low. But the problem with these projects is that they are few in number, so there's not a lot to pick from. But they often involve government partnerships, which does make them safer. Now, as you guys know, for the first 2 years, you have a conditional green card. How do you make it from conditional to permanent? What kind of conditions do you need to satisfy? Well, these are the conditions. First is sustained investment. Your investment of $800,000 must be at risk for those 2 years as a minimum. The second is job creation. So your investment should have somehow given rise to 10 full-time US jobs. And that should, of course, include US workers only. The third requirement is that the project should be still viable. It should be operating. Or if it is not operating, it should have at least met its goal of creating the 10 full-time jobs. Number 4 is no material change. So the project should not have dramatically changed from what was, initially mentioned, the I-526E document that you submitted to USCIS. And number 5 is that you are still the investor. You should not have essentially moved your money away, pulled your money back, or at the same time, you should not have the ability to do that at least for the first 2 years. So, what are the common reasons for the denial of the I-829? Remember, this is a petition to change your temporary green card to permanent. So, the first requirement, of course, is that your project has failed to create 10 full-time jobs. Number two is that, well, somehow you were able to pull the money because of some exit clause, something strange that was going on. Well, that's again a problem. The investment should not be returned prematurely, in other words. Number three is if the project was a fraud or a scam or it got shut down, even then it is somehow your responsibility. And that's why it's very important that you find the right project. And number four, and this is the craziest one, investor fails to file the I-289 petition on time, or you just don't include the right documents. So you must be on time with this one. So what are my recommendations to, let's say, Indian EB-5 applicants? Well, the first one is, of course, to avoid the backlogged category. So don't go with the unreserved category. There's many other ones which are safer, easier, lesser wait times. You should go with those options. The second one is the advanced parole option. That is, if you file and you're already in the US, you can concurrently file for getting your EAD, your travel authorization, work authorization. All of these things can be done in parallel. So make sure that you take advantage of that. Within just 3-4 months already, you can have work authorization in the US. If you have this money, you can travel, you can do anything you want essentially. So this is one of the best pathways if you think about it. One most commonly asked question is, can I start my own business on the EB-5 visa? And the answer is yes. This is known as a direct EB-5 investment into your own business. And it is a fully valid pathway provided to you by the USCIS. So what are the requirements? Well, number one is that you invest at least $800,000 if it's in a targeted employment area. Otherwise, it has to be $1,050,000. Next thing, you need to create 10 full-time US jobs, and these workers should have authorization to work in the US. These cannot be your family members, parents, daughter. You cannot put their names as workers. And these workers should be working at least 35 hours per week. Your enterprise should be for profit. It should be a proper LLC or a corporation, and you must be actively managing it. That means that unlike a regional center in this case, you are the person who's actually handling the business and making sure that the day-to-day operations are being carried out. Your funds must be at risk. There should not be a guarantee of the return of the funds. So, the business can go down under. That's the way you need to show it to the USCIS. Basically, there needs to be a real financial risk. So what's the difference between the two pathways? One is direct investment and the other one is going through a regional center. Well, first one is that the ownership is with you 100% if you go with the direct investment. That means you have so much more control. Regional centers, you will likely see that you have less than 1% of the investment stake over there. So you're more or less a passive investor. Job creation in the first case is direct only because it's your own company. Whereas if you go with the regional center ones, your job creation can be directly through you or indirectly because the regional center is hiring on the behalf of your money essentially. Involvement, like I said, you must actively manage the direct investment one. But regional center one, you don't need to worry about it. You focus on your own life, your own job. Risk, it really depends on a case-by-case scenario. I would argue that it's difficult to quantify, but in general, what I see is that you would end up in a scenario where if you're in a direct investment that you have higher risk. But some people might argue, and they may be actually right in certain cases, you just have so much more control. You're going to make sure that your company does not go belly up at the end of the day. So, I would say it's subjective, but usually direct investment is higher unless you know what you're doing. You've been in the business field for quite a while. And regional center, of course, because you're sharing the risk across hundreds of investors, it basically is lesser risk for you over there as well. Return on investment, generally with a direct investment, tends to be higher if you know what you're doing. Regional centers will generally not offer you a very high return. It's pretty much going to be fixed, or you may have a lower return on investment in the end. That's all. Now, certain questions that are asked all the time again is, I don't fully have the money. Maybe I have 30, 40, 50%. Can I take a loan of the rest of the money for this EB-5 route? The answer is absolutely. You can still do that. Next one is, does my investment really need to be at risk? Well, yeah, you have to prove that to the UCS. Otherwise, you can say goodbye to that green card. Can I bring my family? Yes, you can bring your spouse and unmarried children under the age of 21 with you. Do I need to be actively involved in managing the business I invest in? I told you there's both the pathways, either direct involvement or regional centers. You go with any of them as you please. If you don't want to be involved, that's fine. You don't have to. The next one is, can I withdraw my EB-5 investment after the 2 years when I get the conditions to move for my green card? The answer is yes, absolutely anytime. Most of the projects you'll see, however, they give the return after 5 years or so. But if your project allows it, get it right after the 2 years. But make sure that for those 2 years, the job creation and the at-risk status is met with your investment. And that's it. That's everything I'm covering today for the EB-5. If you want a free guide and if you want to know more, make sure you sign up on YMGrad.com. And we do quite some EB-5 cases nowadays. with our attorney. We have started quite a lot of them since last year, and we would love to learn more about your profile. And if you're interested, reach out to us and we're going to take it from there. Best way to reach me would be directly on the website, YMGrad.com. You see my chat box over there. Send me a message. Let me know that you're interested and we'll take it from there. Or you can WhatsApp me on my number in the description below. You can also follow me on Instagram, where we have a lot more content just like this to help you out. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye and take care.